constantly work behind the scenes to keep us funded and answer all the questions that legislators and people have. So we are very grateful for our community partners, and we are grateful that we exist because they did all of this work before I was ever hired. So we have Tony and we have Emily, and then we have Nicole, who has actually been a student and actively involved in the NAMI on campus. So we have a panel for you today. So I'm going to turn it over to you all.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here today. Tony, if you could go ahead and share your slides.
I have my slides up, and here we go. Thank you for reminding me to do that.
Excellent. Well, thank you everyone so much for having us here today. My name is Emily Fagan. Oh, sorry, we have a cat incoming. Let me get her out of the way. My name is Emily Fagan, and I am the Director of Programs, Training, and Innovation at NAMI, Illinois. And I am here with my colleague Tony, as well as one of our wonderful representatives from a NAMI on Campus Club, Nicole, to tell you a little bit more today about NAMI and this program that we offer, NAMI on Campus. You can go ahead to the next slide. So today we're going to talk a little bit about who is NAMI. We're going to talk about the act that brought us here today together. We're going to talk a little bit about what our program NAMI on Campus is, and then Nicole's going to give you some insight about what that actually looks like when it's put into place. Next slide. So let's talk a little bit about who NAMI is. NAMI stands for the National Alliance on Mental Illness and is the nation's largest grassroots mental health organization. What sets NAMI apart from other mental health organizations is our peer structure. Everyone with NAMI either personally lives with a mental health condition or is a loved one of someone who lives with a mental health condition. All of our programs are led by people who have encountered the experiences of the participants themselves. NAMI is organized into 3 connected levels, each with a distinct role but a shared mission. At the top, we have NAMI National, which serves as our central hub for the entire organization. They define NAMI's mission and overall strategic direction for mental health advocacy and support. They create and maintain our signature programs, set the standards and requirements that all states and affiliates follow, and lead national level advocacy efforts. NAMI National provides the infrastructure that supports the entire NAMI network. At the state level, which is where Tony and I come from, NAMI Illinois makes sure that local affiliates meet those national standards. We provide training, technical assistance, and oversight to help our local affiliates run strong programming. We also coordinate statewide advocacy, support the development of new affiliates, and organize statewide events such as our NAMI Illinois Conference, which will be in October, and we would love to have you all there. In addition, we create new programs that address needs that are specific to Illinois communities. And then lastly, at our community level, local NAMI affiliates deliver the services that people rely on most. Right now, we have 21 affiliates in Illinois. They offer free support groups, classes, and education programs, and they engage in advocacy within their local communities. Affiliates are where individuals and families directly experience NAMI support. And we'll talk a little bit more about how the local affiliates affect our NAMI on Campus clubs. So together, our 3 levels form a unified system that brings mental health support and advocacy to people across the country and right here in our own communities. So now I'll pass things over to our Director of Research and Policy, Tony Ohlhausen, to talk about the bill that brought us all here today.
Great. Thank you so much, Emily. And I'll also just very quickly plug that in our work to develop new affiliates, Central, Southern, and Southeastern Illinois are where we're focusing a lot of our efforts. So if you live in one of those parts of the state, so the Carbondale area, Springfield area, or Southeastern Illinois, and you're interested in learning more about getting involved in a new affiliate, we would love to hear from you. So after that short commercial, I'll dive in. So like Emily said, I'm NAMI Illinois' Director of Research and Policy. I've been in my role leading our statewide policy and advocacy for over 2 years now. And prior to that, I worked on policy at both the local and the state level at NAMI Chicago. NAMI Chicago, um, which leads perfectly into the Mental Health Early Action on Campus Act. And I'm assuming if you're on this call, you're probably somewhat familiar with the law, but I want to provide a little background just in case. So the act was passed in 2019 and developed by NAMI Chicago, and in strong partnership and collaboration with another advocacy group called Young Invincibles, and one of their former leaders is on the call today. So it's great to see you, Caitlin. And kind of, where this act kind of law came from was, based on research done here and just knowledge from that we're hearing from our communities across the state and nationwide. We know that mental health among young adults and on college campuses is a significant concern, and on college campuses we know it's a growing concern. Annual surveys of campus presidents consistently find supporting student mental health and well-being is a top priority for strategic planning, investments on college campuses across the country. We know that by age 24, 3/4 of mental health conditions present themselves. So, we know there's the significant need, and as NAMI, we show up, we provide our support and non-clinical support, but we wanted to take a comprehensive approach to help guide colleges and universities in the state and provide them kind of a direction that we would really like to see them go to comprehensively either shift or improve or grow the culture around mental wellness and mental health and help seeking on college campuses. So we did that through the Mental Health Early Action on Campus Act, and I'm not going to get into kind of the details of the full act. We got Anita on the call, and we got plenty of other folks that can walk through all of the requirements of the act, but I'm going to focus on one specific part in a second. And the last thing I want to say on this slide, why I and NAMI really thinks that this law is really really important, and we really want to see full full implementation of the law, because it's easiest and best to serve people where they are, and young people, college students are no different, right? Because many colleges and universities are not all, but many of them are in communities where there are community resources, but there's having gone to a smaller liberal arts college, there's often an imaginary line around the outside of that campus where maybe going out into the community for services or support isn't really what students are doing. So we want to make sure that to the greatest extent possible, students are receiving services, support, or at least finding that front door to support where they are on campuses. But kind of what we're talking about today is our NAMI's programming and kind of how we fit into peer support. But I wanted to kind of hone in and give a little background on what the Act says about peer support and what the Act is kind of requiring and encouraging colleges and universities to do. So the Act requires colleges to develop and implement a peer support program. It might not be 100%, I don't think it just in the legislative text is 100% clear exactly what that looks like in the real world. I'll get into a little bit of the best practices in a minute, but I wanted to talk just kind of generally about what peer support is and kind of what the purpose is, right? So the goal of peer support generally is to provide peer-to-peer support and training on how to identify mental health needs and resources, right? So, what that means is students helping students, or young people helping young people, right? That is the same for outside of the college context. That might be people who are currently living in recovery from a substance use disorder, for example, or a parent of children with significant mental health needs, right? Those kind of peers in that same group, or same kind of identity, right? So, what peer support is an evidence-based practice rooted in shared lived experience of challenges like mental health conditions or substance use disorders, right? And it's a way to build and strengthen that community by having students who are trained to support their neighbors, their friends, and people that are living, maybe if they're on campus, in their dorm. And it's really an effective way to help counseling centers and campuses reach students where they are, and be that bridge between the counseling center and the student body. Because I know that it's often figuring out the best way to promote services and promote programs that you guys are, or that campuses are offering, can be difficult to reach all students. And the thing I really want to highlight here too is that, when we think peer support and these sorts of kind of person-to-person interventions, what we're not talking about is any sort of clinical intervention here. This peer support can help connect people to a clinical or kind of clinical services if that's what's necessary. But really, the goal of peer support is to provide that personal connection, doing some outreach programming and that non-clinical programming, putting on events, and just engaging the student body, and being that kind of trusted source of information that students can go to on campus. So just to dive a little bit more into what peer support is, and then we've had full 2-hour webinars on all of these topics with speakers from peer support program providers. So I'm sure those might be available to you. If not, we can certainly talk more about that too. But again, just to bring this back to the what Emily and Nicole will be talking about in a little bit, is how I want folks to be thinking about, like, what or how we might be able to connect what's required under the Act to student-led services like NAMI programs or NAMI on campus that may be on your campus already. Because I know one of the big challenges that I hear a lot, or that I've heard over the years when it comes to peer support programs, is how do we find students, right? So that's something to keep in mind here. But you can see on the screen some of the best practices. These are laid out, laid out in the Act. So I think for me, the biggest thing the biggest best practice and kind of fundamental requirement of peer support is that these programs are recovery oriented. We're trying to support folks to support themselves to be able to live happy, healthy, productive, and purpose-filled lives. So that to be recovery oriented, that requires the less fun parts, right? About program design, making sure that that programs have clear policies around boundaries and confidentiality, which I know is a big issue for campuses as well, and particularly confidentiality. How we're recruiting, who is an appropriate peer. There are plenty of resources, and NAMI can be a resource too for this. And then how are you identifying the benefits of that program and doing that ongoing program evaluation, right? And then offering continuing education for those peer supporters as they grow as students, as humans, as prospective professionals, whether that's a mental health professional, a peer support professional, or whatever else that they end up doing in their lives. And then flexibility of services, right? Support isn't a 9 to 5 gig, right? Necessarily. Um, Maybe that's, there are limitations, right? But mental health doesn't work on the 9 to 5 calendar. So I could go on and talk for hours and hours about all of this, but I'll leave it at that. I wanted to just, again, provide a little overview of kind of, what's required under the Act, what peer support is all about. So before I turn it over, I wanted to talk a little. I also want to talk a little bit about what NAMI Illinois and NAMI is doing to foster youth leadership in the state, because I think, I think peer supporters and peer support programs can both foster youth leadership on campus, as well as identify who those leaders are and build those skills. So, not NAMI's programming and our priorities with NAMI on campus and Next Gen Minds and our other youth and young adult focused programming that you will hear about momentarily is really focused around empower. We want to empower youth to be leaders, where we aren't our programming and our goal is to, again, be recovery oriented, build those skills for students to speak up and use their own voices and their own stories to advocate for themselves and on behalf of others as well. And we do part of how we do that is taking a youth-centered approach. So, we don't want to be at NAMI. We're trying not to be prescriptive on what our youth serving programs do and how they operate. We want to hear from the youth and what they want and what they need to drive that change, right? Because if we're just telling students and young people what they need, we're not the young people, and we're not the experts in what they're experiencing and how they're experiencing it. So I really like how I don't know. I just like all of the work that we're doing with youth and trying to do exactly what we're doing here today and engage, not just talk about youth, but bring them to the table to lead their own development and be those leaders themselves. So with that, I'll turn it over to Emily. Oh, cool. I'm still working.
Thanks, Tony. So to give you a brief overview of what our NAMI on campuses are, they are student-led organizations that focus on mental health awareness and advocacy. They host events, bring in speakers, run campaigns, and overall build a community on your campus. They partner with local NAMI affiliates and act as a hub for mental health education across the campus. NAMI on campus was created because students wanted a visible, stigma-free place to talk about mental health. They wanted leadership opportunities, a connection to NAMI, and a way to bring evidence-based education to their peers. NAMI on campus fills a gap that campus counseling centers alone can't fill. So I'm going to be including some pictures of our clubs across the state on here, and you'll see just the very wide variety of what our clubs are doing. So this is from our club at Quincy University. And most of the students at Quincy University are athletes. And so their NAMI on Campus Club has a strong focus on athlete mental health. So you can see that here, all of their shirts say humans are greater than athletes, or human over athlete, to really bring that message home. Next slide, Tony. So NAMI on campus started in the early 2000s when students wanted a structured way to bring mental health advocacy to their campuses. Over time, NAMI formalized the program, offering branding, resources, and support. Today, we have NAMI on campuses all over the country, including a growing network here in Illinois. Between our high school and college clubs, we now have 35. It's actually been updated since I made this presentation just this week. So this mission has always been the same. It's students supporting students through education, advocacy, and community. So here you can see where we already have college clubs in Illinois. This is a program that works very well at any kind of college. We have them at major, large universities like the University of Illinois Champaign-Urbana. We have them at smaller community colleges. So this is a program that spans very well. Next slide. So what is NAMI on campus? These are student-led organizations focused on mental health awareness and advocacy. They partner with local NAMI affiliates and act as a hub for mental health education. It's also important to clarify what NAMI on campus is not. These clubs are not therapy, they're not clinical services, and they're not crisis response teams. They don't replace counseling centers. Instead, they complement existing services that are already on your campus by focusing on awareness, education, and the peer connection. Students drive the mission of NAMI on campus. They choose the events that they put on. They lead the conversations, and they shape the mental health culture on their campus. NOC clubs thrive when students feel ownership and creativity in how they support their peers. So this picture is from one of our clubs at Augustana. One of the events that they did was kind of a grow your own little mental health garden where everybody could like plant an herb, and then there was a little tag that they could put on their plant with a mental health affirmation. Next slide. So let's talk about how these clubs are implemented. Starting a club first involves gathering interested students. Because this program is student-led and a student-run venture, students must be at the forefront. Next, connect with your local NAMI affiliate. If you don't have a NAMI affiliate in your area or they don't have the capacity to support at this time, we will support your club directly from NAMI Illinois. You can always reach out to me, Emily Fagan, and my contact information is going to be later on the last slide. The next step is identifying one or two faculty advisors. This can be any staff member on campus. I've seen our advisors that are psychology professors or counseling center staff, campus life staff, other devoted staff. We have one who's a teacher in the business school just because they had an interest. Once you've connected your faculty advisors, students, and NAMI affiliate, you're ready to start planning your first meeting. At this meeting, you establish your constitution, your leadership roles, your meeting schedules, and then NAMI can provide you with sample bylaws and other guides to help, so you're not starting from scratch. Next, you register your club with your school, and after receiving approval, your local NAMI affiliate or NAMI Illinois will get you registered with NAMI National. After this step, you're an official club and are ready to move forward with your event planning, meeting planning, and outreach. The nice thing about working with NAMI is that we provide templates and guidance along the way to make this registration process easy so you're not having to start completely from scratch. Next slide. So how clubs are supported by NAMI? They're supported at multiple levels, by the local affiliates, by NAMI Illinois, and by NAMI National, as well as on campus by the campus advisors. This layered support helps clubs stay active, sustainable, and connected to the broader NAMI community. NAMI provides training, toolkits, branding materials, speakers, and guidance on sustainability, so clubs don't have to start from scratch. There's a lot of support available to you. Main club support comes from the faculty advisor, who is present for important club meetings and activities and provides support on the school level. Our local affiliates provide direct support from NAMI to clubs in their area. They may attend meetings or provide support from afar, depending on what the club's preferences are. Local affiliates may provide signature programs like In Our Own Voice or custom presentations and speakers for club events. Sometimes club members choose to get trained in our NAMI signature programming, such as our Connections peer support groups, and lead programming for their local NAMI. So for example, at University of Illinois, many of the club members have gotten trained in our Connections peer support, and then they offer a Connections for Young Adults group close to their campus that's then run through their local NAMI affiliate. Local affiliates also frequently provide volunteer or internship opportunities to their club members. NAMI Illinois connects clubs to local affiliates, provides statewide training, and offers Illinois-specific resources. We also help get new clubs started and keep existing clubs connected. If a local affiliate is not able to support a club, we can take that on at the state organization. We also frequently provide opportunities to get trained in programs like QPR, which is Question, Persuade, and Refer, is a suicide prevention training, or NAMI Smarts, which is an advocacy training. We also have quarterly webinars for students to have learning opportunities. NAMI Illinois hosts virtual faculty advisor networking and club member virtual meetups to allow for clubs to connect and share ideas across the state. We also host some in-person events for our club members, such as our annual Advocacy Day, which will be in April, and our state conference, which is in October, which all club members are invited to, and we have special opportunities for them there. So, for example, last year at our conference, we had a NAMI on campus group lunch where clubs from across the state could get together, and we hosted them for lunch at our conference. NAMI National creates the overall structure of NAMI on campus and provides support from afar. They have guides, advocacy calendars, branding materials, toolkits, and other forms of support so clubs don't have to feel like they're alone. National usually offers yearly grant opportunities to clubs to assist with costs for events or meetings. National also provides free giveaways and swag to each club. Similar to NAMI Illinois, National hosts webinars and opportunities for club members to meet others from across the country. They also have partnerships with companies like Happy Coffee, which is owned by Robert Downey Jr., and will send free coffee to any club for any meeting or event that they hold. One other thing I like to mention is that sometimes local affiliates are able to provide some small grant funding to their clubs. It depends on the fundraising that they have been able to do. So we do find that sometimes clubs are able to be supported somewhat monetarily by their local affiliate, and some others aren't and can do their own fundraising. And NAMI National usually also provides some grant support. Next slide.
Emily, do we have time for a couple of questions in the chat?
Sure.
So question one is, does the group have to be called NAMI on campus, or can it have some other name? We have an existing group in which students have created their own name. Is that allowed?
That's a great question. So as long as the students are willing to recognize that they are a NAMI on campus club, a lot of times we have them like we have a couple, especially in our high schools, we have some, like one is students came up with the name Students for Students, and then Students for Students hyphen NAMI on campus or whatnot. So as long as they recognize that they're a NAMI on campus, we allow them to kind of be creative with the name.
And you may be getting to this one. The question was, how many students do you need? Is there a minimum amount of students to be eligible to be a club?
Sure, yeah. So to be a club, we need a president, a secretary, and a treasurer. Other than that, it can be as big or as small. So usually we say a great number of students to start at is, around 10. We have clubs where are a little smaller, and we find that they have like 8 really active students, and then we have clubs where they may have between 45, 50 really active students. So as long as we have those 3 board members, you're able to go ahead and get registered with us.
Thank you, Emily.
Were there any others that I missed?
Yeah, there's
any expectations for the groups to engage in fundraising? So there's no expectation. They're always invited, and we love it when they come and participate. I think it's a great way for them to learn about fundraising, to learn about those kind of events, but there's no expectation that they need to be raising funds for our state, national, or local affiliate at this time. Okay. So let's talk about what clubs usually do. Each NAMI on Campus club looks different because clubs are student-led and student-run based on the needs of their campus community. Some clubs focus on regular meetings and small events, that are kind of inter-club events, while others work to host a few large campus-wide events throughout the year. As mentioned earlier, one of our clubs has a strong passion for athlete mental health. Others are made up of psychology students who want to discuss future career opportunities. Clubs could run awareness campaigns, host speakers, organize movie nights, plan stress relief events, and collaborate with other student groups. The goal is always to educate, engage, and reduce stigma. This picture here, I think this was a few members from our one of our community colleges, and you can see that they've set up this fun event where they are doing a tournament of getting a balloon over this hanging bingo line as just like a fun kind of stress breaker event that they have going on. Go ahead, next slide, Tony. Some clubs get really creative, things like stigma smash events, art nights, mental health fairs, or suicide prevention walks. These events make mental health approachable and visible. Many of our clubs also host events that seem to have really no relation to mental health. I've seen come make your own boba tea or come make homemade slime events, and then they provide resources for all of the attendees who then come to those. So these events provide a gentle introduction into self-care and what mental health might look like to students who may not initially think that they're interested in mental wellness. NAMI on Campus clubs really normalize mental health conversations, reduce stigma, encourage help seeking, and build community. The cultural impact on a campus is one of the most powerful outcomes of the program. NAMI on Campus clubs are also leadership incubators. Students gain experience in public speaking, event planning, advocacy, fundraising, and collaboration. These skills stay with them long after their time at college. They also often partner across campuses with counseling centers, disability services, residence life, cultural centers, and academic apartments. A lot of times I'm seeing that our clubs are co-hosting events with other student groups to support larger numbers. These partnerships can expand reach and strengthen campus mental health ecosystems. Next slide. So as Tony mentioned earlier, NAMI on Campus clubs are not support groups. They don't provide therapy or clinical guidance, but they do create safe, stigma-free spaces where students can openly talk about mental health. Even though NAMI on Campus isn't a support group, members often have lived experience, empathy, and strong listening skills. That makes them great candidates for peer support roles that are offered by your college community when they receive the proper training. We also offer structured peer support programs through NAMI affiliates. Some include peer-to-peer, which is an 8-week course for those in recovery with mental health challenges, taught by those in recovery with mental health challenges. There's a similar program called Family to Family, which is an 8-week course taught by family members. We have support groups, Connection Support Group, which is a peer support group, Family Support Group, which is a support group for loved ones, and In Our Own Voice, which is a presentation where people who are in recovery with a mental health challenge can share their story. We also have Ending the Silence, which goes into middle schools and high schools and provides education and brings in a lived experience speaker to share their story. So we find that a lot of times our NAMI on Campus students end up getting trained and lead NAMI programming for their local affiliate. Next slide. So when there are so many programs out there, why should you choose NAMI on Campus? Well, we are backed by the National Alliance on Mental Illness, which is the nation's largest grassroots mental health organization. This can provide unique support to your clubs that they might not find through other sources or on their own. We come to clubs with a repertoire of signature programs, trainings for students, toolkits for events and outreach, and connections to our wide network of lived experience and speakers and loved ones. We also can provide guidance on club sustainability. Sometimes we have grant opportunities, club networking, and opportunities to join large networks of communities who care about mental health. We provide support so clubs don't have to recreate the wheel. In addition, your NAMI on Campus clubs help shift your campus culture. by normalizing mental health conversations, reducing stigma, encouraging help seeking, building community, and empowering students to advocate for themselves and others. The cultural impact is the most powerful outcome of NAMI on campus. So now I'm going to pass it on to Nicole Allard, who has led our wonderful McHenry County College Club from its start up until just recently when she graduated. So she can tell you a little bit more about her experience with NAMI on campus.
All right. Thank you so much, Emily and Tony. And thank you guys for having me here today. I'm really excited. I'm like a huge supporter of NAMI on campus. I think it's the best thing. So I'm excited to be able to talk to you guys, and I get to do the fun part. So to start with, how did we get started? So our local affiliate from McHenry County was in touch with our college, McHenry County College. And we were lucky enough to have an amazing student wellness coordinator. She like knows everybody. She has all these really cool networking connections and everything. So she signed on as one of our faculty advisors, and so did one of our psychology professors. So we were lucky enough to have one of the best teams of faculty advisors that we could probably have asked for. And our student wellness coordinator she spent like a whole week just going into every single classroom and letting students know this is a club we're starting. We're looking for leadership roles. We're looking for members. If you're passionate about mental health, self-care, if you're a psychology major, anything like that, this may be something that you want to attend or might be interested in. That brings us to our first meeting. So we started in the fall of 2024. I believe it was in October. And our first meeting included just introductions of all of us. We had both faculty advisors there. And then we had two of our local affiliates there. So we had two members from NAMI McHenry County. And they came in and they helped us establish our values, our bylaws, and then get us set up with an executive board. So when they came in, they kind of said, what's important to you guys? What do you really want to accomplish with this club? And then we ended up hosting executive board elections I want to say within the first few weeks. We are a club that meets weekly, so we're pretty in the loop with each other, I guess you could say. And then this picture on this slide is from one of our events that we did. I'll get to that later because it's a little more in depth, but that was one of like our school's favorite events. We still get asked if we're going to do it again. And then Tony, you can go ahead to the next slide. Okay, so our goals and our values that we established right off the bat: destigmatize mental health. That's a big one. Obviously, that's kind of the goal of NAMI on campus, is to have those conversations and let students feel comfortable having those conversations. Provide new and promote current mental health resources. So to be totally honest, before our student wellness coordinator came in and spoke with us in all the classrooms, I had no idea that these resources existed. And so when I started attending meetings and was elected into the president position, my biggest goal at first was like, we need to let students know that these resources are there. We need to let them know that we have a student wellness coordinator. I didn't even know she existed. We have, different types of peer-to-peer support. We have different resources to find students clinical support if they need it. So that was a big one. I wanted to make sure that we get that word out to the school. Confidentiality is another one. So while we're not a support group and we don't do any type of clinical role, we still want to make sure that when students are coming to us with different lived experiences, what we talk about kind of stays in that room. Whatever somebody's comfortable sharing with us, we realize that that's their own comfortability level, and we're going to keep their stories and their experiences private within our own group. Safe space and no judgment. So again, everybody comes from a different background. We all have different experiences. One of the talks that we had early on was that when you're dealing with mental health, there's a lot of different outlets, a lot of different routes you can go to care for your mental health, and what works for some may not work for others. So that was a big conversation we had, was just be open. Don't judge what works for one person that might not work for another, and then have fun. Um, we have so much fun that our students didn't want to stop for the summer and for breaks. So we actually continued our meetings over breaks, which was awesome. And then this photo that I added on here, this was from one of our art meetings. So we colored coffee filters and we dipped them in water and saw, how they looked afterwards. And the whole point was to show that even though things change, it can still be beautiful in the end. It's changing, but it's still there. It's still you. Okay, you can go ahead to the next slide. Okay, so finding members was a big challenge at first. We obviously are starting from the ground up. So I was in a really unique position to be able to see the very, very start of this and follow it through up until I graduated. So it was interesting to see who showed up to that first meeting based on our student wellness coordinator kind of recruiting people, and then how we could continue to recruit people. So every year our school has a student organization fair, and that's that picture there with the trifolds. And we do tabling events. So we'll go to like the crowded areas in the school and we'll set up a table with our information. Um, we hand out swag that gets everybody's attention when there's free stuff. Word of mouth is a big one. I gave a speech on NAMI on campus in my speech class. So that let like maybe 50 to 60 students know like, hey, we're here. And creative advertising. So the poster on the left that was our poster last semester, and it has little tabs at the bottom. So it's got like positive affirmations on it, and you can kind of go and tear one off if you need it, and it has our information. We did one time that was like a cell phone. It looked like a screenshot of a cell phone of two people talking back and forth about like NAMI on campus. So just anything that's going to grab people's attention. But I'd say the student organization fair and just being present in the school, just kind of showing up everywhere, is probably the biggest thing. I know we recruited a lot of members that way. Okay, you can go ahead to the next slide. So our challenges. The biggest challenge I think we've faced is students thinking that we're a support group. And while we love people feeling open enough and safe enough to share those things, we also, personally, I'm not licensed to be able to do that kind of thing. And we don't want to convey that. So to get over that challenge, we had to start letting, at the beginning of every semester, we'll have like a welcome back meeting, and we'll kind of go back over those, this is not a support group. If you feel like that's something you need, reach out and we can find you that resource. But whatever you share in here, let's try to keep it as non-triggering as possible. And if there's something more going on, we do have people you can speak with. Scheduling was another challenge. So we're a community college. People don't want to be there past when they have to be there. It's a little different when you're on like a big campus and, there's dorms and students live there. You can kind of schedule these things for an evening or, later in the day. Our students typically, classes start around 8 a.m. and most of them are done by, I'd say, about 3 p.m. So we were looking at that time slot to find an open period of time when students could make it and didn't have to come back, because once they leave, they don't really want to come back. So that was a challenge, making sure that we could accommodate everybody. At one point, we even talked about maybe doing like 2 meetings a week just for those students that couldn't make one day, they could make another. Changes in faculty advisors. So we had our student wellness coordinator leave her position, which was heartbreaking to all of our students. We even jokingly put her face on little sticks and we, carried her. We had holly heads, we called them, because we missed her so much. But that was a challenge, was trying to find another advisor to come in and just sort of take over that role and fill those shoes that, she had done so much for the club. Volunteer follow through. So for different events, we always ask students, who can who can watch the table at this time or who's willing to help serve coffee at this time. And we'll get people that right off the bat are like, yes, I'll do it. And then they either forget or they can't make it or something comes up. So making sure that we either send out reminders or use sign up sheets like Google Forms or Sign Up Genius, that was a good remedy for that one. And then executive board involvement. So to start off with, we had myself as a president, and then we had a vice president, secretary, and treasurer. But when you're first starting, there's really not a whole lot. You're kind of still, getting your feet underneath you. So I felt like our treasurer didn't really have much to do. We didn't really have a budget at that point. And then myself and the vice president kind of took on the bulk of that role. And so getting the executive board involved at a later time when we started to need those positions more active, that became a little bit of a challenge because they had been so used to not having anything to do. And now we're like, okay, now it's time. So that was a little bit of a challenge as well. And then you can go on to the next slide. Okay, so our budget, that was another challenge. And that one I kind of want to address specifically because there's a few things that go into it. But like I said, we were brand new, so we had pretty much no budget at that point. We hadn't done any fundraising. Our local affiliate was able to fund some of the events that were happening. We had some collaborations, but we really wanted to start fundraising and sort of building, funds for our club to be able to do the events that we wanted to put on. So one of the things that we did was our local affiliate let us know that there was a grant from the state that we would qualify for. So we did apply for that and we were awarded that grant, which was amazing. And I'll talk about that a little later with the event that we were able to host. We did get some funding from the school. I believe every school is different in how they disperse funds, but we were able to get some funding from our school and then fundraising. So we did some restaurant fundraisers. Luckily, we have a community around here that's very big on mental health advocacy, and a lot of restaurants were very happy to work with us. So that was a huge thing. I would go around to different businesses and ask, like, here's our club, here's what we're trying to do. We're having raffles, we're having events. Would you be interested in donating anything? So I think having both an active executive board in that way and then also like a very understanding community was a huge help for us. And then also the grants from the local and state level were instrumental in the events that we were able to do. And the photo on this slide, that's our meeting room. We have our little, I don't know, it's kind of hard to see, but we have our screen up there. So every week we can do a little bit of a presentation on either events coming up, things that we're, talking about, hot topics at that point. And this room, we actually outgrew it last semester. We had to move to a bigger one, which was amazing. We are back in here now just because of the school's space restrictions, but it was really nice to have to go to the school and say, hey, we need a bigger classroom. We have too many students. So, and then you can go on to the next one. Okay, here's the fun part. So these are some of the events that we were able to put on just in our first year. Up on the left here is our Friends Coffee Social. So like Emily was saying, Happy Coffee partners with NAMI for any event, any meeting, anything we're doing. And we started our semester by throwing just like a coffee social, just come by, get some coffee, meet some new friends. We had it obviously friends themed, so we threw the orange couch in there. We had all these little props and everything. And it was just a way for students to come and meet new students, hear about NAMI on campus. We put a table out with all of our resources and just offered our support and our welcome to the school for any new students. And last October, October of 25, I decided I was going to host NAMI Week. It was a lot of work, but we loved it. So NAMI Week, we took the entire first week of October, and we had a different event every day, and then a week-long raffle and week-long resource table. So our events were things like Happy Coffee again. We had a therapy dog come in. Sometimes we have like massage places will come in and they'll do like free massages for students throughout the day, just things like that. And then all of our raffle prizes were donated by community members or by NAMI on campus members. So that was a really fun way to get the word out and to really kind of show students who we are and what we do. Our student panel collaboration, we collaborated with students from Social Sciences Club, Neurodiversity Club, LGBTQ. I think there was one more, but we all collaborated. We chose one or two members from each club and we did like a Q&A panel on what it's like to live with a mental health condition or how mental health kind of trickles into other areas of our lives. Up here on the top, we also have the Portillo's fundraiser. That was a big one for us. Everybody around here loves Portillo's, so that was huge. We have the ice bucket challenge that we did. We did that over the summer on like the hottest day of the year, and we challenged other NAMI on campus clubs to do the same. We have the planetarium meditation, so that was during finals week, and we opened our school's planetarium up to students. They could sign up for like an hour-long time slot and just go in there and watch a space show or take a nap or whatever they wanted to do. We have mental health and movies, so that was a collaboration with Film Club and Paranormal Club, and we were able to discuss how mental health is portrayed in popular media and kind of exaggerated for entertainment values. And then down on the bottom on the left here, we have the I Scream for Ice Cream. That is what we were awarded the grant for. And that was so much fun. We have students asking us all the time if we're going to do it again. We set up a booth. So this like blow up booth here that students could go into and just scream as loud as they wanted to, just to let off some steam during finals week. And we would measure how loud they'd scream. So we'd kind of have like contests going, like who can scream the loudest, or we also had like emotional support scream people. So some of our members would go in the booth with other students and just scream with them. It was a very loud day. And then they would leave the booth and we had free ice cream for everybody and just, fun place to hang out. So that was really cool. And then you can go on to the next slide. So some helpful tips. I kind of mentioned the Sign Up Genius or Google Forms earlier. This reminds volunteers that it's, hey, you signed up to do this. If you can't do it, please make sure you reach out or find someone that can. Getting involved with the local affiliate events and training opportunities. So like Emily was saying, NAMI has a lot of programs that you can get involved with. I myself, I do Ending the Silence, In Our Own Voice, QPR. I'm going to start doing state training and then also peer-to-peer support. So those are things that I've been able to get involved in just through learning about them at NAMI on campus. And then, on top of that, you can then bring those presentations to the club and to the school and even further help the school. Collaborating with other clubs at the school. So our college personally loves collaborations. They love to see it. They will support it in any way they can. Reaching out to the community, just kind of getting out there, letting people know, hey, this exists. This is what we're doing. This is our goal and our purpose. And then having meeting and weekly topics prepared. So a lot of times our meetings are planning events, planning how we can get out there and really let students see the resources we offer, help, have those tough conversations. But when we don't have anything coming up, it's helpful to just have a topic picked out like boundaries or self-care and then kind of incorporate it in a fun way. And then this photo is our new president. She was elected after I graduated and she's just snuggling with the therapy dog who comes and visits us all the time. And then you can go on to the next slide. Okay, so our student impact, this was such a huge thing when I sat down and I really looked at like our sign-in sheets and our events and our attendance and everything. So we're not a huge college. It's, we're local, we're a community college, and we were able to reach over a thousand students in just 1 year. That was a big thing because when we started, we were October of 24. We really didn't get going until after winter break that year. So this is truly just like 2025 numbers. Um, we have seen a lot of the resources that we have for students. There's a huge increase in students using them. So Together All, Better Mind, things like that, that our campus has had for a while and nobody knew about, they're being used now, which is a huge thing. I've also seen a lot of students with the swag that we pass out, so the little fidgets and the little like pop-it balls and that kind of stuff, and they'll ask like, "Do you have any more? I love fidgeting. I bring this to class with me." So that's been kind of cool too. We were awarded Student Organization of the Year, which was really cool because we hadn't even been around for a full year, so that was a big flex on campus. We've had nothing but positive feedback from students. Everybody loves seeing us around. I mean, we've never had anybody that was like, "Why are you guys here?" You know, it's never been anything negative. So we've been really lucky in that regard. And then we've noticed that mental health has been trickling into other areas. So we've had clubs come to us like, "Hey, can you present on mental health in sports? Can you talk about how mental health impacts, um, just different areas, different majors, different things students are involved in." So that was really interesting to see because you don't really realize how much it trickles down until you really start meeting students and having those conversations. And then you can go on to, all right, and then I'll turn it back over to Emily.
Thanks, Nicole. So I'm so glad we could have Nicole here today to kind of bring a personal experience to NAMI on campus, especially with a campus club that has been doing so much and has been so successful. A lot of the reason is Nicole. So this is a time where we can have some Q&A if you have any questions for us. I also have my information up here, and I'm sure Tony and Nicole can add their information in the chat if they're willing, or I can connect you after. If you have more questions, if they come up for you later, or if you would like to learn more about how to bring NAMI on campus to your area. So I can go ahead and open it up for any Q&A that we might have.
I lost my voice. Anyone have any additional questions? And I'm going to say not only are we a huge proponent of NAMI on campus, and many of you know I came from the university setting and was actively involved in student government and student activities. So this is wonderful to have both your local affiliate and state and national support. Some people have to jump off. I know everybody is really, really busy. The other thing that I want to kind of ask you all is, okay, let's see. Is it okay for students to be the president, secretary, and treasurer, or does it have to be college staff? I think
So
it's supposed to be students.
students have to be the secretary, treasurer, and president. The board roles are students that are part of the club. So the staff, the only roles for staff are the faculty advisors. The rest of the roles are student roles.
Yeah, and I do also just want to clarify because I realize maybe I didn't make it 100% clear, but when I was at the beginning, when I was talking about kind of the peer support programs that are required to be offered by campuses, the NAMI on campus and our programming are kind of supportive of those programs, but it's not a replacement for those programs. It's the the point I was trying to get across, and hope maybe I was unsuccessful, was that that I think NAMI on campus clubs and the student leaders are a great way to promote programming and peer support programs that are run by the campus counseling center, or however yours campus is set up. They can help. I think those clubs can, Nicole's, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but can be really informative on how those programs are set up. And then those student leaders, I think, could be really great candidates for peer support providers in the campus program. So I just wanted to make sure that I was clear on that.
Yeah, and to add to that point, Tony, it like you said, like we're not clinical, and so a lot of times we do have students that come and they're like kind of this is everything I've been through my whole life. And it's like, we appreciate that. And I love that you feel safe here, but we have these resources that can help you where we can't. So I think that's a big thing, is like filling in those gaps, having a place where students feel comfortable saying, this is what I'm struggling with. And then we're kind of that middleman, like, let's get you here. Let's get you this resource.
I always look at it like a relay. Like, remember track, the relay races? It's like, oh, I hear you. I have your baton. Here, Amy, here's the baton. You're like finding your mental health professionals. Like, we're the connectors that help them get to the right place. I think, Tony, and maybe it's just because I come from that background, I thought you were really clear that NAMI on campus is an excellent recruiting and kind of that pre-training. And also, it is such a, when you look at all the topics the three of you talked about, it is a really good introduction to health citizenship and mental health citizenship. You talked about QRP, they learn about NAMI, they learn about community partnerships, they learn about fundraising. I used to teach an undergrad and graduate health administration class because I'm a public health educator. Fundraising has been part of every single job that I have had for 40 some years. So just learning those basic skills is really important. I did want to kind of highlight, because you did an excellent job of talking about how, first you kind of get your plan together and then you go to your campus structure, whatever the student organization structure is, and you apply to be a student organization. And I just wanted to highlight that that can be a lengthy process, because they typically do the request for funds for the next fiscal year, just like we're all working on our budgets already for fiscal year 27. So sometimes if you miss that funding cycle, you have to wait a whole nother year. So if you're thinking about doing a NAMI on campus, you'd want to start working on it now for like next fall. And then the student organization has rules and hoops that you have to jump through. So I really like that you have that minimum officers, because that's usually about the same for student government. You have to have a president, vice president, treasurer. They all have, and you did a really good job of saying the rules are different for every campus, which is about every single thing that we train on. The rules are different, and community college perspective is different than university perspective. But you can start your club as long as you get permission, but that guarantee, once you get into the cycle for student government, you almost always get refunded. And then you can build the funds that you have. But that first wait can be frustrating when you're trying and you have all these beautiful ideas. Anybody have questions, comments, anything else that they can ask? Or if you have any questions about NAMI in general, because as you all were talking, this training came about from one of our advisory council meetings, and Tony's on our council meeting, and he was like, oh, let me introduce you to Emily, because Emily has some services I think your people would love to hear about. And so that was just an off the cuff conversation that Tony and I had that built from something else we were talking about at the advisory council. So I kind of want to know too, and you don't have to answer me today, what other things does NAMI have that we need to share with our partnership? Because if you remember, and I know I probably read the MEAC Act more than anyone else over and over and over, community partnerships are a large part of MEAC, and Young Invincibles and NAMI are huge community partners for us. So it never even occurred to me to have NAMI share, because we all think we already know everything, but we don't. And so this is a wonderful opportunity that's well supported, has templates, has structure. If you have to start a new mental health organization, this is a wonderful place to start. But I also want Emily and Tony to think about, like, what should we plan for next year that all of our partners might not know about?
One thing I can give you a little preview of that we just got restarted at the beginning of this calendar year is Next Gen Minds, which is, if you imagine, a NAMI on campus club for the entire state of Illinois. So it's a youth and young adult work group and advisory board for NAMI Illinois. We have members from all over in 3 different age groups. We have one that's high school, 14 to 17. We have one that's emerging adults, 18 to 22. And then we have one that's young professionals, 23 to 30. And they get together, they work on projects, they have a podcast that's going to be released this month. That's all led by our members. They put on events, they do community campaigns, they work for us in an advisory capacity. So lots of really cool stuff for youth and young adults to connect around mental health, around a passion for mental health from all across the state.
Cool. I look forward to learning more about that.
Yeah.
Anyone have any questions before I let our speakers go for the day? Guess I should check chat. Nothing in chat. We wanted to make sure we gave plenty of time for questions because so often we schedule it for 60 minutes and then we never get to the questions. So we made this 90. It is perfectly fine to end early. We just wanted to make sure that we gave enough time for input from all of our partners. I feel like I'm like an auctioneer, like going, going, gone, last chance. Are we good? Some of you I will see next Tuesday at the ICC Tax Central Regional Meeting. Some of you will be at the Southern meeting at the end of the month. I tried to divide them this time, 2 in March, 2 in April, so that we could spread them out a little bit. And also because we had to make the Chicago one virtual last time because of the weather. So I made it later in April, hoping that the weather would be cooperative. So if you have nothing else, hope you all get to have time to eat your lunch. And thank you so much for giving us your time today.
Thank you so much.